Homework 13, Measures of Average, Video 7, Mean for Grouped Data, Part 2. In the previous video, we started with some grouped data and came up with a way to estimate their mean. We had to estimate it because we did not know what the original values were. We knew that 5 of the values were between 8 and 12, but we didn't know what they were exactly. So we guessed their midpoint. And at the end, we kind of came up with a technique for estimating the average. What I would like to do in this video is summarize that in the formula and then apply it to one more example and show you how to do the work a little bit more efficiently. The estimated mean for group data is, if you recall in the numerator on the previous video, we multiplied each class's frequency times its midpoint. So we took the frequency times a midpoint. Now in the book, if you click view an example, it's going to call the midpoint XM. I'm just going to write the word mid for midpoint. We took each frequency, in fact, let's just go full out words. We took each frequency and we multiplied it times each midpoint. That was in an effort to add more efficiently. So for example, instead of adding 10 plus 10 plus 10 plus 10 plus 10, we just multiplied 5 times 10, frequency times midpoint. But then we took the sum of those, so we can stick a giant sigma in front to say, take the sum of all of these multiplication problems answers. And in the denominator, we divided by how many cars we had. And although the problem originally stated there were 40 cars, had it not, we've recovered that 40 by taking the sum of the frequencies. And it looks kind of intimidating because of the words and the symbols, but all this says is in the top, for each class, multiply its frequency by the class's midpoint, then add up all those answers. On the bottom, just add up all the frequencies, and then set up your fraction. So let's take a look at one more example. This example does have a context. These are the number of losses that the NCAA Men's Basketball Championship had during their season from the years 1939 to the year 2016. And if you have your book, this is on the bottom of page 672. So for example, over the past bunch of years, I'm not going to do the math, out of all the teams that won the NCAA Men's Basketball Championship, 13 of them had only 0 or 1 loss throughout the season. 28 had 2 or 3 losses. 21 had 4 or 5 losses, etc., etc. So how are we going to pull off this formula using this table? Well, the first thing we need to do is calculate the midpoints. I'm going to show you how to do this really efficiently. And remember, the midpoint for a class is just the average of the lower limit and upper limit. So for the midpoints, all we have to do for each class is add these two numbers and divide by 2. 0 plus 1 is 1. 1 divided by 2 is 0.5. For the second class, 2 plus 3 is 5. 5 divided by 2 is 2.5. I'm going to predict that the next midpoint is 4.5. For the next class, 4 plus 5 is 9. 9 divided by 2 is 4.5. The minute you think you picked up on the pattern, predict the next one, calculate it, and if you're correct, then just use the pattern to finish. These are going up by 2, which really isn't a surprise because that's what the lower limits go up by, and the upper limits. So 0.5, 2.5, 4.5, 6.5, 8.5, and 10.5. I'm going to recommend making one more column. The column I want to make are the things that we need to add for the numerator, frequency times midpoint. So if we do frequency, which I'm going to abbreviate FREQ, times midpoint, then for the first class, we're calculating 13 times 0.5, that's 6.5. For the second class, we're calculating 28 times 2.5. I'm going to do a little bit of trickery here. Divide this by 4 to make it 7, multiply this by 4 to make it 10. 7 times 10 is 70. Pretty sure that product is 70. For the next one, the frequency was 21. Its midpoint is 4.5. Can't do that trick here. I'm going to do the distributive property. 4 times 21 is 84. Half of 21 is 10.5. So this should be 94.5. I'm probably going to check with the calculator in a moment. For the next class, the frequency was 9, the midpoint was 6.5. So 9 times 6.5. 9 times 6 is 54. 9 times 0.5 is 4.5. 54 and 4.5 is 58.5. Again, I would just get out a calculator. I just don't want to reach all the way over there. The next one is 4 times 8.5. This one's not too bad. 32 plus half of 4. 32 plus 2 is 34. And then 3 times 10.5. 3 times 10 is 30. 3 times 0.5 is 1.5. 31.5. If you create a midpoint column out of necessity, but also follow it up with a frequency times midpoint column, kind of out of necessity too, because I'm going to be adding up those products, then all I have to do to calculate the mean is add up the correct columns. The top says find the sum of all these. That's the last column. So this sum equals whatever this adds up to give. I think I'll use my calculator now. No. A half, a half, a half, a half, that equals 2. So carry the 2. 2 and 6 is 8, plus 70 is 78, plus, just get out the calculator. I'm not trying to impress anybody. 6.5 plus 70 plus 94.5 plus 58.5 plus 34 plus 31.5. I got 295 exactly. But I'm going to add it again in reverse just to make sure that I get the same answer. 31.5 plus 34 plus 58.5 plus 94.5 plus 70 plus 6.5. Got the same answer. And that's actually not bad advice. Whenever you're doing a long problem in a calculator, do it twice. Make sure it comes out the same both times. And if you can do it in a different order, it minimizes the chance of duplicating the mistake twice. All right, so that sum is what's going to be on the numerator. The denominator is just the sum of the frequencies. So all I got to do is find the sum here. And it's perfectly acceptable to just write a capital sigma to mean take the sum of this. Okay, no calculator. This is 41 plus 21 is 62 plus 9 is 71 plus 7 is 78. Just to make sure I got it correct. 13 plus 28 plus 21 plus 9 plus 4 plus 3. Bingo. All right, so just make sure that you put the correct sum on top of the correct sum. So the mean is the sum of these products, which is the last column sum, divided by the sum of the frequencies, which was this column sum. So now we just have to divide 295 divided by 78. And we get a pretty messy decimal. It doesn't say how many decimals to round it off to. I'm probably just going to round it to 1 decimal. They actually use 2. It's about 3.78. So calculating the mean of group data is by far the trickiest part of this section, because even though it's just a mean, just an average, you don't know the original values. So you have to make a guess for each class's value by using the midpoint. But you can streamline the adding process by multiplying each midpoint by its frequency before you add. And then the sum of the frequencies is the total number of values that you had. So take your time on these last few. You know there's going to be one like it on your final exam. Speaking of your final exam, this is the last information that will be on there. So you can expect the last question on your final exam to be one like this. All right, that's the end of the videos. Honestly, there's more content that I had planned to cover in this class, but because it was a 12-week class and we got a little behind before spring break, and then the world came crashing down and we were all playing catch up, there's some content that got sacrificed. I'm not too worried about it because this is not a course that feeds into another math course. For many of you, this may be the last math class you ever take. And if it is, good for you. I encourage you to there's that the ability to be able to solve problems on your own is a valuable skill in any setting. So hopefully between the beginning and the end of this class, your brain either intentionally or subconsciously picked up some techniques for problem solving in general. If you have any questions, please let me know.